Hardship, tough times, tests and trials, it's all part of life, unfortunately. No matter what challenges you face, though, my next guest says one thing will make the bounce back easier, and that's resilience. Now, we like the sound of the word, we like the idea, but what can we be doing now to stand strong when adversity does hit? Life coach Tiffany Petersen has some thoughts on that. This is a juicy one.
Yeah.
It's a juicy one, and this word resiliency has kind of bubbled up the last couple of years in these self-improvement conversations. And again, we love the idea of it, but we actually think of applying the principle to day-to-day life. It starts to get a little more overwhelming, I think.
Right. Well, and the thing I think about this one particularly is really the only way to practice resilience is through, like you were saying, adversities and challenges or tough times or things like that. So we love the concept of it, but real life requires us to engage at a level that may not always be as comfortable.
Are you born with a natural resiliency, do you think, or can it really be built over time?
Well, I think there's, of course, how we're born and what we're born into has a huge influence to how we're raised and what we develop and what attributes. But this is an attribute that we can choose to practice, right? Like kindness is something. Are we born kind or do we learn kindness? We can practice kindness. Same thing with resilience. Resilience is, again, our ability to bounce back. It's our ability to be flexible, to adapt to change. It can also be around persistence, right? Sometimes we have to be really resilient in the pursuit of something great. So it isn't always this like heavy topic, but it is a skill that we get the opportunity to practice if we choose to. I see resilience so much more as a practice than it is a perfected state, right? Because sometimes I feel really resilient, and then truth-telling, Brooke, sometimes I feel pretty like fragile, and I don't feel as resilient. And that, I think, is a normal human experience for all of us.
But I think the word practice gives us, it empowers us, right?
Yeah.
It gives us that control to say, I can choose to work on this or demonstrate this. And when it comes to practicing resilience, you say the first place to start really is with your own perspective.
Perspective is everything, right? Perspective is the lens of how we see life. It's choosing to see this adversity or this challenge or this struggle. It's the mindset of how we choose to see it, right? Is this going to be an opportunity for me to grow, or is this going to shut me down? We will all face adversity. That is something, it will come in different costumes for different people, but every one of us, if we're in a human skin suit, we're going to get to practice this. Adversities will show up, challenges will show up. It's more so, is this going to help me grow or is it going to shut me down? And we do have choice. I think that's one thing to be reminded of with any adversity. We all know someone who went through something horrific, right? Not all of us will maybe hit that kind of thing in this life.
That level.
Right. For some people, then they start a charity and a cause, and they really allow this thing that they went through to be something that pushes their growth up. And we all know someone also that went through something terrible that really shut them down. And there is still choice to how we navigate it.
You say when it comes to building up a resilient heart, there is one key question at the heart of it, really.
Yeah, I think for me, at the heart of this life experience and when I'm facing my own stuff, which as a human I do, is am I trusting, right? This is really more about a trust conversation. And for me, this does dip into my spiritual life, where for me, I do have faith in a higher power that it's deciding, is life working for me or against me? Albert Einstein has been quoted as saying that the most important decision any human being ever makes is, do I live in a hostile universe or a friendly universe? So in other words, at the core of that question, am I trusting? And of all the things you're facing is really looking at the core is, what's my belief system? Do I believe that this life is happening to me or is it happening for me? And I know that sounds so cutesy and life coachy, but really at the core, we're talking about what your belief is about this life journey.
Is trust a byproduct then of faith? Do those two work in tandem? Are they kind of interchangeable? Faith, trust, it all kind of seems to blend together.
I think they obviously are sisters. They're hanging out together. They blend. I think we look at choice, trust, faith, right? And the interesting thing when I was doing some research for this segment is research supports that people who have a spiritual or religious support system to their life fare much better in navigating adversities. Now that can mean different things to different people, so my question would be to anyone watching would be, what nourishes you spiritually? right? For some, it would be Bible study or going to church. For some, it might be time in nature or yoga or prayer, meditation. But do some of those things to have active in your life, because then I think what we're looking for is meaning. There's a great book I read years ago by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. Must read. And this gentleman, psychiatrist, was put in one of the Holocaust camps and lost his family pretty quickly. He survived many years through that experience, and he's credited in the psychology field as being attached to what's called logotherapy, which means the concept of attachment of meaning to things. And so if I go through something really hard, but I can still derive meaning from it, right? Or in his case, he could still see the sunset in those camps. He could still see fellow prisoners sharing their loaf of bread. He was able to connect the dots that if we can derive meaning and still feel purpose and have trust that life, God, universe is working in my favor, then I think we can navigate these things with more ease or more peace in the process.
You touched on some huge themes there, the meaning, the connectivity, and ultimately the trust. You say looking at life through a particular lens can help us get there as well. You call it your learning lens. Learning lens.
I think for me, one of the most potent questions that has become really relevant in my life journey is the question is, what's this here to teach me? Right? So for me in my life, whether I had an experience where I faced cancer many years ago, to all kinds of things or relationships or things, you know, just whatnot. And I remember really dropping into that question, what's this here to teach me? And intuitively, I had a response. And so whether we journal that, we pray into that, but is really adapting, choosing again to see that this life is providing me lessons to learn.
Do you find when you bounce that question off your client, sometimes the answer is hard to swallow?
Yeah.
I mean, the teachability, I mean, that can be a painful process.
Let me make sure I'm really clear. Like, no one has to love when you're in a tough thing, right? Sure. No one's gonna be like, oh, gee, I lost my job, or, you know, my marriage fell apart, or I'm in this challenge, or my child's struggling. I'm just saying these are some things that we can practice through the journey, right? And so part of that practice is also being kind and gentler. For some of you, the lesson you need to learn is how can you be kinder to yourself? Being harder on yourself, like, why am I not stronger? Why am I not more, you know, tough and confident?
That's not always helpful.
No, sometimes it's like, hey, I need to get back in bed at 3 o'clock today in my sweats and eat Ben and Jerry's, right? To help myself be more resilient with all I'm facing. Is choosing to cultivate, I think, more of an inner friendship with ourselves of how we're navigating that, then you will know. So if I'm asking, what do I need, or what's this here to teach me, then I have some navigational points to guide me through it.
And allowing yourself to invest in those well-being exercises, Ben and Jerry's or not, right? You always say that so well and in such a positive way. Where can people get more advice from you, Tiff?
My website is tiffanyspeaks.com, and there's lots of free resources there, and that's a great place to connect.
And because I know we'll get emails, give us the name of that book again. You said must read?
The must read is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
We'll link that over to this conversation on our website too, and connect you with Tiffany. We always get emails about that connectivity as well. Thank you, my friends.
Thanks, love.